Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Madison Kelly. I am the founder of Out Rochester. We are an online community dedicated to celebrating and connecting the LGBTQ community in Rochester. This is our first forum with the school board. We had one forum earlier today, but our first time ever doing a forum. So we're very grateful that you chose to attend and support the LGBT plus community in Rochester. Hopefully you will be able to have more events like this in the future. I'd now like to introduce my co-moderator, Vangie Castro.
Hello, thank you, Madison. I'm Vangie Castro. I'm a community organizer and an LGBTQA plus activist. I'll be co-moderating tonight's forum with Madison Kelly of Out Rochester. We're excited to be hosting the first forum that specifically focuses on issues that concern the LGBTQA plus community and voters. I'm honored to be here and that Madison asked me to co-moderate. So more voters are identifying as part of the LGBTQA plus community and are voting in record numbers. Additionally, many voters are LGBTQA plus allies, and because of their support, were able to defeat the Minnesota Marriage Amendment in 2012 by 51.5%. allowing a pathway for Minnesota marriage equality in 2013. As nonpartisan city school board candidates, constituents are curious to know if you will be able to represent all the diverse voices of Rochester students. So you will have 60 seconds for opening comments. Then we'll move on to answering questions. Each candidate has 1 minute to answer the question. Other candidates have 30 seconds to readdress any candidates if they wish. There will be 2 to 3 questions that we have asked and sent them to the candidates earlier. If we have time, we'll take questions from the live audience, and then we'll have closing comments. We will start off with seat 1 and going alphabetical order. We'll start opening comments with Don Barlow.
Good evening. I appreciate Out Rochester hosting this, and it's my pleasure to be a participant. It seems like it was just yesterday growing up as a child of parents who grew up in the segregated South and who oftentimes shared their stories of the struggle, but not to overstate the struggle, but to use the struggle as a foundation to help build character and values within me that I was able to extend in my appreciation and valuing of all people, understanding that all does mean all. And as a member of the board, I tried to represent that, and it's my desire to continue to do that. Thank you.
Great, and then now we'll move on to Justin Cook.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Justin Cook, running for school board seat 1. I moved to Rochester 3 years ago with my relatively young family. My wife is a resident in pathology. That's what brought us to Rochester. I have 4 kids in Rochester Public Schools. I've got a 5th grader, 3rd grader, and kindergartner at Jefferson Elementary, and a preschooler at Hoover Early Learning. I am committed to introducing a vision for Rochester Public Schools as a center of excellence going forward, and I'd love to have your support in a couple weeks or now.
All right, great, thank you. And now we're moving to seat 3. We'll start with Karen MacLaughlin. Okay, well, let's oh, Karen's muted. Can you unmute yourself, Karen? Okay. Oh, she's kicked out. Well, we'll wait a second for Karen to come back. We have a little bit of a technical situation.
Do we want Deb to introduce herself while we're waiting for Karen?
Sure, let's do that.
Thank you.
So good evening. Thanks for having me. I think this is indicative of what our students are probably facing every day, technical issues dropping in and out. So we're going to be patient with each other and have grace and understanding. Wanted to say Happy Unity Day. This is a day that we stand against bullying and are united for kindness and inclusion and acceptance in our community. I have a little teeny bit of orange on my scarf. That's all I've got for orange in my closet. But I think it's really a special day across Minnesota, and really a great time to be here talking with Madison and Vangie and those online. I'm running for my third term on the school board, which can be overwhelming in even the best of times. And now we're in a global pandemic and things are getting more complicated, and social justice issues have risen to the fore. And so people are asking me why now and why again. It's because I believe our district needs strong, experienced leaders who understand the system in which that we have to operate. I bring a community engagement focus in my work, and I think that's important as we move forward to solve problems together. Looking forward to this evening and the questions that we've been provided and the questions that will come up. And thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Deb. Karen, are you okay to introduce yourself?
I am. I had a little bit of technical issues, so I jumped on my
No
phone.
worries.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, you're
Yes,
great.
sounds great. Thank
Okay,
you.
much better. I had to reconfigure. So my name is
No worries.
my name is Karen MacLaughlin. I am an attorney here in Rochester. I've lived here over 20 years and practiced here. I currently practice law for a local nonprofit that represents low-income people. And prior to that, I spent about 15 years in the county attorney's office. So I bring that type of experience to this race and hopefully to the school board. I think it's a little bit of a different perspective than perhaps the current board members have. Also wanted to highlight that I'm also a mom of a 10th grader at Mayo High School, and not something I talk about a whole lot in public, but I'm also a single parent, and I think that that brings a different perspective, particularly for an audience like we have tonight. The diversity of thought and ideas and families is what really is something I focus on, and I think it's important to bring that to the school board. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you to Out Rochester and the other candidates. I hope we have a great discussion tonight.
Thank you so much, Karen.
All right, Dr. Jessica Garcia for seat 7. Unfortunately, Mark Schleusner was unable to attend tonight. He was not feeling well, so we will wish him well, but go ahead.
Hello, and thank you, Out Rochester, for having us, the other candidates, and also Mark, if you're at home listening or watching this. And thank you to everyone else listening. My name is Dr. Jess Garcia, and my pronouns are she, her, or ella, if you speak Spanish. I'm incredibly honored to be here. This forum means a lot to me personally because I'm the only out queer candidate in this forum. I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist working for the state of Minnesota in a forensic mental health facility. And I'm running because I believe that I have the personal experience and professional expertise to help the district get to where it needs to go. We talk a lot about the racial disparities within the district, but I also hear, specific to this forum, a lot about the heterosexism and the cisnormative discrimination that is alive and well in the district also. So I feel, for me, it's important to create a safer, healthier, and more welcoming community throughout the district. And to do that, I would like to focus on mental health access, diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and also just making the physical and cyber spaces that all of our students and community members interact with within the district safer as well. I am honored to be here tonight, and I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we jump into our next question, I just want to say for anyone watching, we will be taking audience questions during the end of the forum. So please comment those if you're watching on Facebook. We'll be happy to answer those. And if we don't get to all of them today, we'll be sending them to candidates and then posting the answers on Out Rochester's pages. So then our first official question for candidates is, earlier this year, a petition was created urging Rochester Public Schools to prioritize consent-focused sex education. The petition reads, quote, As many victims have come forward about their sexual assaults, it is clear that RPS and schools in the surrounding area have failed to properly educate their students about the importance of consent, end quote. The petition was signed by almost 2,000 people. Do you support consent education at RPS and sex ed that is inclusive of all genders and sexualities? And we'll start with seat 1 again, like we did before. Don Barlow, if you want to go ahead.
Sure, certainly. Excellent question. I did sign the petition, and I believe it is important that all students have the opportunity to feel safe, to be valued, and not have to be less than who they are. Our district does currently have a number of policies, standalone policies ranging in name from bullying to harassment to well, the other one escapes me. The point being, though, it's time to let everyone know that there are behaviors which are inappropriate. There's value in everyone. And as a parent of 6 kids and currently the grandparent of 17 grandparents, 4 of which attend Rochester Public Schools, it's important that they feel safe, that they feel that they have as much to offer, and that they should feel as protected as any other student.
Great, thank you. All right, Justin, same question. Do you want us to reread it? Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh,
All right. Yep.
Yes, I do support sex education that is inclusive of gender and sexual diversity and of consent specifically. And I, for me, the touchstone continues to be that the best way to get the highest value out of our public education system in Rochester is to unleash the highest possible potential from every single one of our students. And so if we are creating an environment in our schools that is not inclusive or that does not allow each of our students to achieve their highest potential ultimately, we are all losing as a community. So that is the real interest here. From my perspective, that's what I'm going to continue to fight for, is to get the best value out of our public education system by unleashing the highest potential from each and every single one of our students. And yes, I think that a part of that, and a very important part of that, is consent education and sex education that is inclusive of gender and sexual diversity.
Thank you so much. Karen?
Thank you for the question. And in terms of consent education, I 110% support that concept and that initiative in Rochester Public Schools, and the petition, I signed it as well. What I want to say about this topic is that when I talked about being an attorney in the county attorney's office for several years, I was practicing in juvenile court. So I saw many, many, many cases of young people who were sexually assaulted when they did not have the capacity for consent, or when their desire for, they're saying no to someone and consent not being present was a big part of my caseload. So I intimately understand the issues that lead to that type of conduct, and honestly would very much support an initiative to have consent taught thoroughly in our schools, to work someone out of a job like I used to have, so that you didn't have to have cases in the court system where there was a lack of consent, either by force or coercion or inability to give consent. And I've spent a good portion of my career supporting victims who have been in those situations and fully understand those type of situations. I also do fully support inclusive sex ed. I think that that would go a long way into our young people in our community understanding the situations that they are in social situations as they become, middle teens and older teens. I think it's really important for all of our students to understand those concepts and be accepting of those concepts so that all of our students can feel welcome in their communities and in their schools and excel in their education as best they can.
Thank you. All right, Deborah.
Thank you. So yes, I do agree that this is an appropriate and safe topic and certainly important. I'm also really concerned about consent education because I have two sons, one graduated, one still in school, and I'm worried about our what I consider our digital native students, right? So they've done a lot of social interaction via texting, online, just living in a world that we didn't grow up in. And so I'm concerned that they don't have the same social understanding of social cues that we may have learned in my age group and older, perhaps. I'm sure my children would be mortified to know that I'm telling you that I gave them a book when they were mid-teens called May I Kiss You, because I wanted them to have some hands-on practical information about consent and consent, not, consent happens maybe in a kiss, but consent happens throughout any intimate relationship at any point. I also think that, in our health curriculum in the school, when we do touch on this a little bit, and while it has to be aged and developmentally appropriate, I think it should spiral a little bit too, because we know not every student, maybe in 9th grade, is putting themselves in situations where they need this information. And so just having access to topics like consent all through high school, I think would be really important. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Jess.
Yep, 100%. I would absolutely support consent education as well as inclusive sex ed within the school system. I also come at this from not just professional, but also personal knowledge. Like I had mentioned in my opening, I identify as queer. And so being part of the community, I did not have sex education that was inclusive. And so there were a lot of things that I didn't understand were either maybe specific to a group that I was a part of. I just assumed that if it didn't get talked about, there was something wrong with me. And so that happens to a lot of LGBTQAI, Two-Spirit plus individuals, where they will not have very important conversations with healthcare providers, which can put their bodies at risk for a number of things. Also, it puts a significant mental health strain on our LGBT community. And they're already experiencing that too. In terms of the professional aspect of things, I don't think that there is a single person that I have treated, at least since I've been here in Minnesota, that did not have some unwelcomed on their part sexual interaction with another person. And a lot of that happens very young. And I think another thing that we need to be including, at least in the consent part of the education, is making sure that that's happening not just at the high school age, because some of the patients that I have are talking about instances when they were 3 and 4 and 5 years old, having somebody touch them in a way that did not feel good to them. So we need to be able to give children that language and that understanding of how they can ask for help, and recognizing that when they do not feel comfortable with something, it's okay to have a reaction to that. And we as adults need to be supportive of that experience, them trying to communicate that experience to us. In terms of the inclusivity part, again, I think that that's important because it's important for students to see themselves in all aspects of the curriculum. I know we're talking about in other forums doing this anti-racist curriculum, but I also think that we need to be inclusive and anti-homophobic, queerphobic, anti-transphobic, et cetera. And I think that that would be really important as a platform. And we do need to be doing it as young as kindergarten in a developmentally appropriate way, because even sexuality is being expressed, gender expression is being expressed as young as 2 and 3 years old for some students. So if we're only doing it in late middle school and high school, we're missing quite a few students. They're experiencing perhaps a number of problems in which that education would have been useful to them many years before we're giving it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Vangie, could I just add Dr. Garcia's comment just a second?
Sure.
I fully support what she says. And I also think that, it's not only those individual students, but their peers that would benefit from that education as well, that, they're seeing their classmates who perhaps present differently. And I think it would be really helpful for all those young students to have that same education background.
Great. Does anybody else have any other comments about that question or redress any of the other candidates? Okay, great. So then we'll move on to the second question. Protecting LGBTQ students in Rochester requires more than just a statement of support. It requires continuous listening and learning to truly understand the issues. Madison, do you have the rest of the question?
Yeah, I have the rest of the question. So I'll start from the beginning.
Oh, wait, no, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, so protecting LGBTQA plus students in Rochester requires more than just a statement of support. It requires continuous listening and learning to truly understand the issues LGBTQ students face in school and in life. With that in mind, please talk about something new and learned about that you've learned about the LGBTQA plus community recently.
And do we want to start with seat 1 again?
Let's start with seat 7.
Okay.
Jess.
We'll go backwards.
We'll go backwards.
Sounds good.
Okay. So even being part of the community, I also am still learning things about my community every day. So just being a part of one group doesn't mean you know all the things about the group at all times. So I learned that today is International Pronouns Day. So happy International Pronouns Day. I also want to give a little bit of something that I'm continuously learning about, and I like to provide education to people when I also am learning things about the term Latinx or Latinx, however you have been pronouncing it. I work with a group of Spanish speakers, Hispanohablantes, so we're a Spanish-speaking little group, and we were talking about how it's an uncomfortable and really an unused term for anyone that's outside of the United States, and that the X is representative of basically like an English overlay onto Spanish language. And so now we as Spanish-speaking community are trying to shift towards a more culturally appropriate, inclusive terminology for that. So Latine is the new term that I think that we're trying to kind of move forward. A number of people are still using it. There's a little bit of discomfort within the community, and it's spelled just like Latin with an E at the end, to indicate that someone, either if you don't know their pronouns and you want to be inclusive, and or if they are non-binary and don't want to offer a pronoun, because obviously Spanish is a very gendered language. And so that is something that I'm trying to include. Also the term or the word amigo, instead of calling somebody amigo or amiga, which is male or female friend, is to use amigues, to not necessarily place or enforce a gender on that, or to be more inclusive. So that's something that I've been learning and trying to work through in another language. So there's my educational piece for this afternoon.
Thank you so much. I did not know that. So thanks for enlightening us all about that. I appreciate that. All right. If we want Deborah to go next, then answering that question.
Sounds good.
Thanks. So I agree. We are continuing to learn all the time. Something I learned, which is a little operational in the district, was that now that our students are virtual, our secondary students, that using Google Meets did not allow students to put their own identification name in. So as we could sign up and put our names and our pronouns in here, and as some of us do on Zoom, that was not possible on Google Meets. So we had some great advocacy in our district by some teachers who talked to their building and then talked to the district and said, hey, we need to solve this problem for our students. We know, especially if students are identifying as a different gender, that they, it's important for them to be recognized by the name that they prefer. And so got word this week that they have kind of solved that technical problem. And so I think shortly that students will be able to have that their name, preferred name, displayed on their screen when they are in class. And so that was something I didn't know was an issue. I'm glad it's been resolved. And I think it's part of, our belief statement is that our students should be able to be, their identity should be celebrated and accepted. And so I'm really pleased that the district took this on and got it fixed for our students.
Great, thank you. So moving on to Karen.
Awesome. So the reading and learning that I've done in preparation for tonight, what I learned, and I was sort of surprised that I didn't know this already, and it totally makes sense, but I just hadn't really thought about it in this perspective, that 40% of homeless students identify as LGBTQ. And the reading that I did about it indicated to me that a lot of times it's the coming out process with parents or other family members that doesn't go well, that leads to young people leaving the home, either choosing to or being kicked out because they're not being accepted in that home environment. And I really struggled with that because I think it has such an impact on students' education and their entire lives as they move forward, that they're, out on their own as very young people and really need to, they struggle. So they really need the supports in the community to keep them going forward with their education. I think that this has just even been exacerbated by the pandemic environment, that, the homeless students were struggling anyway in trying to do, and at a high school level, doing distance learning while homeless is almost impossible. But I give these students so much credit for sticking with it and doing that. I did actually come across an article in MinPost this week that talked about a student in the Twin Cities actually doing this. And, she works so that she can support her family who's in a shelter. She lives in an encampment in Minneapolis and is, pursuing her education and hopes to graduate this year. And, a really great article talking about the topic. And I will put the link of that article in the chat for everybody else. But it's something I learned about and something that I think that the district really needs to recognize so that we can best support these students.
Great, thank you, Karen. We'll go on with Justin.
Yes, thank you. So, one of the things that's been interesting for me as a first-time candidate and having the opportunity to, I guess, interact with folks with lots of different views, is getting a better understanding of what I view as the misunderstanding on some of the current issues facing the school district as it relates to some of the hot button LGBTQ plus issues, and specifically on the issue of the gender neutral bathrooms in the new schools that are being constructed. There are many in our community that have the understanding that the gender neutral bathrooms are a good fit for non-binary students or transgendered students or staff, I suppose, to be able to use those facilities, when in fact, at least my understanding, and I think that the sound legal understanding of the issue is that those bathrooms, the gender neutral bathrooms and locker room facilities, are for people that anyone really that would like some additional privacy, and specifically for anyone that would like to avail themselves of that additional privacy, understanding that the other facilities are for all folks that identify with a specific gender. And that was eye-opening to me. I didn't appreciate that was a common understanding in the community, and I'm glad that I now know that.
Thank you so much. All right, and now if Don would like to answer the question.
Certainly. For me, I was probably not fully aware, and I'll preface awareness being that we tend to be more aware of those things that directly affect us or impact us or a member of our family and or community, and less aware of things that may not. And so I wasn't fully aware of the struggle and the similarity of struggle that this community, the LGBTQA plus community, has experienced and the parallels. And so that has allowed me to see greater sense of value, passion, and commitment. If you haven't been a part of the struggle, if you're not directly impacted as a result of, if this is, quote, your world and you're able to live your best life, it's tough to actually see the value and benefit. One can intellectually say, oh yeah, I see that, I sense that, I get that. But until you live that, it's just, it's different. So living it and then being able to connect it to others has been of great value to me.
Thank you very much.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Before we go to the next question, just if anyone's watching wants to comment any questions for our candidates so we can answer hopefully at least one of those tonight, please feel free to do so. That being said, our next question for the candidates is, what is something you've done, helped do, or plan to do to support the LGBT plus community? And I guess we want to start with Don again and then go back down.
Certainly. Well, not wanting to, I do respect people's right to be who they are, and the level of privacy and revealing that one may choose to undergo. And so I will simply say I'm thankful and honored to have had the opportunity to serve as a mentor for individuals who are transitioning, who are discovering the freedom that is yet before them, as not only a member of the school board, but as also a Christian pastor. I also am proud to be able to say that, I have not possessed a judgmental tone or a condemning attitude, but just the opposite, a loving and an affirming understanding and appreciation, in the same way that I would like others to extend that grace towards me. It's something I'm able to do towards others, whether known or unknown. And that's the beauty of it. When we are authentic across the board and make no exceptions for all, but we treat all and value all, then it's a natural byproduct of who you are, and people can sense that authenticity of who you are based on what you do.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to Justin.
It's I think the biggest thing that I've done to date that's measurable in some way is just celebrating the advance of rights of the LGBTQ plus community in the current era. Over the last 25 years, really, it's been remarkable. The battle of marriage equality. I mean, this is the modern day civil rights movement, and it has happened so fast. We can always be impatient, and we should be, but compared to previous civil rights movements, it's been so fast. And I guess what I have done is just cheered and applauded and tried to be a part of it at every stage that I could. I'll post on my Facebook for anyone that's interested, a letter to the editor that I sent in 2009 to the Quad City Times when Iowa was one of the very first states, the state that I grew up in, was one of the very first states to embrace marriage equality at the Supreme Court in the Varnum v. Bryan decision. I thought it was right then, overwhelmingly, and continues to be right today. And the march for inclusivity and equality is never going to look bad in history, and I certainly look forward to being part of it going forward as well.
Thank you. All right, and we'll move on to Deborah. When you're ready.
Yeah, thanks. So I personally was honored to be asked to bear witness in court last year as a young person that I had known changed their name in transition. It was a very, it's a routine ceremony, but so profound. And I've often told this young person's parents how happy I am that they are so supportive and loving of their child, because I know that that's not always the case. And I am thrilled to be part of their life and continue to support them. I'm also proud as the school board that we've just resolved our belief statements, voted on those in September, and that we have an equity policy coming up that we'll look at that's very inclusive. And then finally, my work on PTA. As a national board in June of 2016, we were in Orlando just weeks after the Pulse nightclub shooting, and we voted on a resolution that would recognize LGBTQ as a protected class. And so as part of a national organization, I'm really proud that we are one that not only by resolution and policy supports all, but also includes LGBTQ students and their families in our diversity work. So those are the things that I've done on my watch. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. All right, Karen.
So I feel like I have done my best to demonstrate that I'm an ally to this community. I've worked hard on the Olmsted County Human Rights Commission. I've done some advocacy locally for the ACLU. And what I have learned from those experiences is that I really learn a lot from the community and the people that I've met through those experiences in the LGBTQ plus community. They've just taught me so much about advocacy and their passion for this community. And it was an easy decision for me. I didn't even have to make a decision that I wanted to be an ally to them as I got to know them. As far as what I would do in the future, if I'm successful with the school board bid, I will, part of what I did to get ready for tonight is I did some reading and some thinking and some research, and I came across a wonderful resource. It's the NEA, which I believe is the National Education Association Ed Justice group. And if I'm successful with this bid for school board, as soon as I'm elected, in the next day, I will join that group and not just use it as talking points, but really dig into the research that's available there and use that as one of my primary resources to keep these issues front and center on the school board and in the district.
Great. Thank you. And Jess.
Yeah, so I'll say on a broad level, the thing I'm doing is just being here. So as a member of the larger career community, to run authentically and as an out candidate is tough. And it's, I would say, my overall representation or my overall contribution is that, because representation is so important. I did not have a me when I was growing up. And so to already hear just in my candidacy from students and parents feeling like they're seen just because I'm running, that gives me warm fuzzies, because I feel like there's already change happening. I also offered comments to the school board in support of the youth commissions wanting to respond to the need of gender inclusive restrooms, not only in our new facilities, but also developing existing options, or developing options in our existing facilities for not just people who are non-binary, but for individuals who don't want to have to choose on the binary, I suppose. So I was also endorsed by Stonewall DFL, and really that was to show the community where my true commitments lie, and that I am okay with being held to a set of standards in which they want to see how I would hold up queer students, staff, educators, and how they would be supported in our community. So it's an ongoing commitment for me, because it's not just a professional or political move, it's also very personal to me. And I have a number of loved ones, family members, et cetera, that are part of the larger community as well. And so I think just being who I am has made a difference to them too. And I've noticed some shifts already in that respect, because there were a few people who asked me, who reported they were being well-intentioned, but told me, wouldn't it be best if you just kind of toned down the Latina thing and the queer thing and just ran, because you're white passing, you're straight passing, got into a position of power and then told everybody who you were? No, that's not who I am. So if me being who I am authentically is not what Rochester wants, I can take that with a grain of salt and continue to do my work. But otherwise, what you're seeing is what you would get. So to any LGBTQAI two-spirit plus person out there, you can do this. And I hope that we can help to heal this community in our school district, because it's time.
All right, thank you everyone for your answers. We do have a little more time before we end closing. We didn't really get any more questions, but if
Oh wait, can I help? No, someone just sent some hearts.
they sent us 4 hearts,
Not a question.
so just so all you know, we did get some other questions earlier, and we will send them on to the candidates, and they can answer them if they wish. We will post their answers on the Out Rochester platforms, either on Facebook or on their Instagram page. We had sent a closing prompt, which kind of goes like this. So typically voters get an opportunity to change their vote, usually 2 weeks before the election. So that time has passed. But if you had an opportunity to talk to a voter that has voted for your opponent, what would you say to help them vote for you, for if they were part of the LGBTQA plus community or Rochester in general?
And to voters who haven't voted yet. Some people are still in the process.
Right. So Madison, you get to see who starts.
Let's go backwards again. So Jess, would you like to start?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've mentioned this in other forums as well. We've all been through a lot since March, some more intensively and consistently than others. And our children and our community need help healing for so many different reasons. And I can help us move towards that healthier, more welcoming, safer district. If you would like to be part of that movement in the district with me, please vote or change your vote or vote by November 3rd for Dr. Jess Garcia for Rochester Public School Board. I am running for seat 7. You can also connect with me on social media or via my website, and I know you're going to post that information a little bit later. I'm an open book, so reach out to me if you have any questions, and I would be happy to connect with you. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you.
And we'll go with Karen.
Thank you for this question and the opportunity to speak to this topic. I think what I bring to this race is my skills in advocacy. Like I talked about before, my involvement in the Human Rights Commission, my passion for social justice is, I think, what distinguishes me from some of the current board members. And I believe that I bring a different perspective and a fresh voice to issues like this and many other issues that the district is facing. I thought a little bit in preparation for tonight and kind of reflecting on Ms. Seelinger's comments earlier that I think it's great that the current board is working on their equity policy. I can see that they're moving forward. I have been following the meetings and that they adopted equity beliefs in one of the last meetings and that there's a plan to present an equity policy soon. But what my concern is after looking at this issue a little bit more, even just on the statewide level, is that so many districts are further along that path. And I just worry that Rochester is being left behind by trying to perhaps make a perfect policy, or being afraid that if it's not exactly the way someone wants it, that they'll be criticized. And I look at that issue in that I think it would be better to have a policy and pass it. And, if it needs to be modified, modify it. But I think that we're being left behind by not having something in place already. When I'm looking at other districts in the state who have been working on this issue since, 2013, that kind of thing, I really just feel like we have to move forward. And I think that my voice would, and my persistence and my general character for persistence would help move that along and keep it at the forefront so that we can make progress here, because I think it is really important for students and staff that I just feel like they're seeing a lot of inactivity. There's work being done, but we want to see the final result and we want to see it implemented and we want to see changes made, particularly in things like the anti-racist curriculum, that I think that will go a long way to helping students feel more welcome in the district. And I guess I would leave you with this thought. When I was talking to my son about running, he wasn't super enthusiastic because he's a teenager boy. But one of the things he said about me is that he knows me best in the world. He said, you would literally find a way to figure it out if there was some problem that I was presented with on the school board. And I think that fully encapsulates me. And if that's what you're looking for in a candidate, I would ask for you to vote for me for seat 3 between now and November 3rd. And thank you for having this forum. It's been a great opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Deborah.
Oh, you ready for me? I dumped my phone on the floor.
We'll give you a minute or a second.
So why am I running for a 3rd term on the school board? And these are my core values. Continuity of service. The challenges that we're facing with the global pandemic and our social justice issues are really deep and complex. And I understand the school district deeply. I've not only served on the board for 8 years, I've been involved in the district for going on almost 20, watching the school district being involved, and I know how process moves. Also, my belief in public education, that we meet every student where they are. So whether they are homeless, whether they are LGBTQ, whether they are minority, whether they are special ed, whether they are all of the above, we need to meet that student, find out what their barriers are to learning, find out what they need and how we can support them and move them forward. I'm centered on community engagement. I believe in student voice and student choice in our work. I think that together we can make solutions to problems, that we don't just suggest solutions from the board table without input on how to make those processes better. And also being deeply vested in governance and understanding what the school board's role is. Our role is policy, and yes, creating policy does take time. But that careful consideration of policy, specifically the equity policy, has been worked on by staff, has been vetted by our employees of color group, has been vetted by some other outside groups, and it's going to come back to the board in a relatively short amount of time. Without that investment in developing that policy, I don't believe it would be as successful or as practicable as we would see an outcome if we rushed it. Thank you for your time this evening. I hope that no matter who you vote for, you vote. I think it's important, as I'm sure you all do. And if you want to learn more about me, deborahseelinger.com, or find me on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Don.
Struggle is real. It's not imagined. It's something that I live every day, and it is nothing that I choose to view from the position of being a victim, but actually something that compels me to be a victor. That life view is a view that I believe all of our students should have an opportunity to receive and to pursue. It is useful when students are able to see individuals who they can relate to, individuals who perhaps have overcome obstacles, and individuals who still rise to the challenge. I'm not a person of privilege. I'm thankful for the struggles. I'm thankful for the challenges. Completing my first term on the school board, I have experienced both struggles and challenges. And perhaps the most satisfying thing, though, is being able to see students come before the board, share their visions, hear their passions, and to support their dreams. I do ask your vote. Certainly, if you have voted for my challenger, I have no reason to, question that. But if you are so inclined to say, maybe this Don Barlow guy is the guy I should, really support, I would be up to that. Thanks again for this opportunity. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right, Justin, last but not least.
Well, yeah, hopefully not, right? Not to echo too much, but thanks so much for the forum. It's greatly appreciated by I think all of us, but certainly by me. To just echo slightly what Mr. Barlow just said, who I'm challenging for seat 1. This is not a race for seat 1 where there is a great deal of animosity between the candidates. And so if that's what you're looking for as a basis to decide who to vote for, look elsewhere. But what I can tell you is that that what you will get as a representative in seat 1 is my passion and my perspective. I am deeply passionate about public education and the potential of public education to unleash the potential of every single student and thereby enable the broader community to realize the benefits. And I will consistently frame things in those terms. So if you are interested in the greatest possible future for Rochester, and if that's the argument that you want to have about how best to bring about the best possible future for Rochester through public education, I urge you to support me for seat 1, and then we'll figure out the best way to figure out the details on how to make all that happen. But I really feel strongly that there is an opportunity here for this community to be bold in what we are trying to build in our public education system, and I want to present that vision to the community and think bigger for what we're trying to do here. And thanks again so much for the opportunity to discuss.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. All right, Madison.
Yes. Anyone who's watching tonight, if you haven't heard of us before, you can visit us at Out Rochester on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. I wanted to thank every one of you for participating in our forum. It was really excellent to talk about LGBTQ plus issues with all of you. I know that many people who follow us on Out Rochester were very curious to see what people had to say tonight and are very grateful that you had the time to sit down and talk about these issues. So again, thank you so much.
So thank you from the bottom of my heart for participating tonight's school board candidate forum. You know, the general election is on November 3rd and early voting has already begun. We'll provide links to the candidates' website if you'd like to learn more about them. Have a wonderful night, stay safe, and be well.